All right, so I'm back. This is Leilani Cawthon, your host, and excited to start our next hour. We have a couple of educators who are joining us, and the first one is going to be Lisa Lund. Lisa, you're on. Just making sure you're unmuted. Hi, Lisa. So Lisa is the Director of Educational Technology and Library Services from Denver Public, and I met her when we were out there one year, and I'm super excited about their work because she's got some really advanced thinking around AI and a ton of other things. So, hi, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, great, great. Now, are you going to want me to have you share screen? Do you want to be presenter?
I would love to present if that'd be okay.
That would be awesome. Okay, Lisa, 3, 2, 1. Now you're presenter. You just go up to sharing and share your screen. You can share webcam too if you want to.
Okay, no, I'm good. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see if I can get that.
I'll let you know as soon as I see that it's up. Yeah. Okay, we see your screen. You're going to want to blow that up a bit. There you go.
Awesome. Is it up? Is it big enough then?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
It's big enough and it's awesome and it's adorable.
All right. So I'm Lisa Lund and I'm the Director of Educational Technology and Library Services, and I do work for Denver Public Schools. This is my 4th year in Denver Public. We are on the same track that I imagine most of you are in the room on that roller coaster ride where we're hanging upside down, going sideways, too fast, too slow, and trying to keep up with all the pivots of COVID and the journey that we're on, that I like to call it this year. So I'm going to talk through a few things about some of the things that we're doing in Denver Public around trying to make the pivots that we've been doing throughout the school year. And I'm happy to answer questions along the way as well. So please stop me if I'm talking too much. I'm happy to answer questions about what we're doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about professional learning and kind of how we have managed to do that this year. I have a very small team. We have 90,000 students in Denver Public Schools, 92,000 give or take. And so I have a team of 7 ed tech people, and I have 3 digital coaches as well. And each one of my team's members supports about 25 to 35 schools in Denver Public with professional learning and coaching around ed tech. So as you can imagine, we've never been more busy in the past 6 months than we ever have. I guess people didn't think technology was important before the pandemic. So as my team likes to say, they've become one of the most important people in all of Denver Public Schools right now in order to help teachers. So over the past, we started back in August. We've reached 4,152 teachers, 184 administrators, 64 central staff. And we have provided professional learning asynchronously and synchronously. As you can see up here, we have things called one-pagers. These are documents that help our teachers learn about the tools that we provide for them. And then we have a YouTube channel that has 3,000 hours of views over the videos and synchronous and asynchronous learning that we've created this year. And my team is doing office hours and answering emails and coaching teachers one-on-one in order for us all to be successful for all of our students. Denver Public started the school year off full remote. And then recently we have pivoted, as we all love that word. That is not my favorite word anymore. And we are slowly bringing back students in person in K-5. We started back ECE, and kindergarten started back on Monday. And we will slowly bring back first, second, third. It gets a little more complicated with the CDC rules as we get higher up. And so we're starting to think about how do we support our teachers in a live stream option, which I am sure many of you are in that same scenario as we are. So our teachers are teaching in person as well as remote students, and that's a huge pivot for us as a district. Do we have the equipment? Do we have the bandwidth? Do we have the teachers in place to do that? And so we're looking at what's best instruction as we move towards that. And I think one of the biggest things that we did this year is Denver Public Schools is very much a school system of choices. And so this year we have landed on Schoology and Seesaw being our learning management systems. We learned from the fall that parents get really confused when there's a lot of choice in a learning management system or how you're delivering instruction. So we normed on these two, hence why we've done so much work around Seesaw and Schoology. Seesaw is new for us this year. Schoology is something that we've adopted several years ago, just probably not used to its fullest options as it is now. And so we also purchased Edpuzzle, Screencastify, and we've done most of our professional learnings around those things. Besides Google, we are a Google school district as well. And so trying to simplify for teachers, here's your options to use. Let's stay within that system of tools and resources, because once we start to venture out, we lose our parents and our students. It gets more complicated. I don't have any little kids anymore, so I'm super lucky that I can sit here and talk to you, and the only thing you might hear is my dogs barking in the background. So no one's bothering me, tugging at me to help them with their homework or anything like that. So I think we're trying to think of the parents that are home or our students who have no option at home to get support. And that's something really important for us in Denver Public. I also think that we've really thought about the equity stake here. It's really important to our district, and we center all of our work around equity. So we've looked at this from making sure that we provide all these resources and tools for our parents in the languages, many of our descent decree languages that they use throughout the district. And so making sure that we can provide that for our parents so that they are helping their students at home. So just like all of you, this has been a massive shift in just not only the department, but the school in general. I think the school district in general, I think for the first time I hear us talking about changing the way that we teach kids. And I love that. And I hope that rings true once the pandemic is over and we actually go back to, again, not my favorite word, what was normal. I hope we don't go back to normal. I hope that we've learned lessons through this process, and that we continue to kind of look at the ways that we're providing things for our students. We know that many of our students that will be doing remote learning from home are our Black students and our Hispanic students. And we know that because many of these students are either working in the workforce, they're taking care of younger siblings. We know that also these students live with extended families, and it's a risk to go to school and bring COVID home to an entire intergenerational family living. So we have to continue to find ways that we're supporting all learners. Hence, when we move to remote learning or in-person and remote at the same time, we're calling it live streaming. I think everybody has a different name for it. Making sure that our teachers understand how to do that. We spent some time creating videos and examples of what that would look like in a classroom, and how to engage our learners that are sitting at home, and engage those learners that are also in our classroom, even though we're 3 feet apart with a mask on, standing in front of the room, still trying to get that semblance of normalcy for our classrooms as well. Lilani, do I want to stop and ask questions, or are they in the chat? I guess I'm asking that out loud, but.
Lisa, this is Doug. You're doing fine. If I see any crop up, I'll just interrupt you and, and give you a second.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't just rambling on and not paying attention. So.
No, you're doing great. Continue, please.
All right. And so I think another thing, as we're thinking about the pivot from remote to in-person to whatever it happens to be, knowing that we've already had a couple classrooms that have had to go out and go back to remote learning from an in-person learning, we know that that will continue to be the case as we move forward. And so we're trying to think about how do we help our teachers understand and our students. We know that we're getting a lot of pushback on screen time, which even as an adult, I'm kind of tired of Zoom, Google Meets, whatever it is by the end of the day as well. But we also know that our students need to bring their devices to school. So we're recommending that devices go back and forth from home to school. We've provided devices to all students that have requested devices, and we do have students using personal devices. We've also, as a district, provided hotspots for our students who need those. We also know there's a shortage of those, but we are doing the best we can to get those in as quickly as possible to support students, because I think there's some states that do better, but not very many. It's super hard to support all of our students with Wi-Fi. Through our local providers are not always as understanding of the communities that we have, or even that they're providing very good internet service for some of the communities we live in Denver public schools. And so we've made sure that everybody has a device, and we're recommending that it go home in school. And there's a couple reasons for that. We are wanting kids to interact at school, but we also know that we have remote learners. And so we want to make sure that our remote learners are interacting with students in our classrooms, or we're afraid that the digital divide or the divide for literacy will become greater, knowing who most of our students are who are opting for that remote learning. So we want the interaction to be within there. We're also thinking about our teachers in this process. Since we're keeping the learning management systems, we would like them to keep all their resources within their learning management systems, so we're not doubling our teacher workload. If we're able to provide our teachers with, here's where all your resources are in either Seesaw or Schoology, then our students can all access the resources from the same location, whether they're in the class, in class, or they're actually remote at their home. And the other thing around that is we're afraid our littles, our K1, 2, if we take away the computer for a couple weeks and unfortunately numbers in Denver increase and our kids have to go back home, we're probably going to look at having to re-log in and all the problems we had with how to access or use the tools within our learning management system. So we're wanting to keep some consistency with that as well, because we know it's super fluid right now within all the scenarios that we have. And so how do we continue to do that across? We're also looking at, as we talk about that live streaming, trying to keep the costs down for our buildings, that we can use a computer with a microphone and a camera on it, and still teach kids in the classroom and remotely without having to purchase something super expensive. And right now, the availability of purchasing even headsets or cameras is almost impossible, and on back order if anybody's trying until late December or January. And we also know devices are on back order as well. So we're lucky that we've had enough devices to meet the needs of all the students within our district, but we know it could be a struggle as new students come onto the district and we're running low on devices. So we're trying to mitigate both those by having kids bring them back and forth to school. It'll also kind of help us know if a student doesn't have a device, if they happen to come back to school, that we'll be able to provide one for them. I think the other big picture that we've looked at too is social emotional learning for this. Our schools all do 30 minutes a day of social emotional learning, and it looks very different at every school based on their community needs, student needs, and teacher needs. And then making sure that we're building that community in our classroom and having touch points with all of our students. We know that relationships are the most important thing right now, whether we're in person or virtual. So how do I continue to build those relationships with my families and my students as we go through this process. And we've been looking at that quite a bit, like what does that look like? And how can we continue to build that? And it's very important to our district, and it's important to our kiddos right now. But I also think on the flip side of this, and we're working hard on this too, is how do we help the social emotional needs of our teachers and our administrators? And I know there's a varied group on the phone, but right now, I think our administrators are on massive overload. I think that our teachers are on overload, depending on their home situation. And honestly, I think everybody in society is right now. So how do we help support our teachers? And again, my team helping to support with that professional learning, or just a quick question. No question is stupid in our department. Even if you don't know how to log into something or you're struggling, reach out to us to help. So we've looked at ways that we try to stay ahead of the curve. We know that's super hard, but we know something's coming up. Let's create a quick video, or we keep those in our pocket for when we get questions, and we can quickly send a video to a teacher rather than writing out a 16-sentence email. Here's a quick video to explain that. So we always keep those in our pockets too, again, trying to help the teacher mitigate the problems that are happening within their classroom. And I think the other thing that we look at through that social emotional learning, and I know there'll be different camps on what I'm going to say, but from a culturally responsive education lens, the camera has been quite the tipping point for many classrooms or teachers. And so I think we have to celebrate that our kids show up to class, whether they're in their pajamas, wrapped up in a blanket, sitting on a couch in their kitchen, out on their front step. And if our students don't feel comfortable showing that camera to their classmates or to their teacher, I think we have to honor that. It's not disrespectful, and it's not that they don't want to be there, but sometimes it's really hard to go into a kid's home. And I think I saw on Twitter, I don't remember the teacher's name, they all said, we're guests in our kids' homes now, and we never thought that we would be doing this. So making sure that I'm not making judgmental calls about things that maybe I see or things that are happening. And that if a kid chooses to, just check in, I did have somebody say, we do make our kids turn their camera on to make sure they actually are the ones attending the class, which is probably a good thing at secondary, but then they're allowed to turn it off once they've just said, yeah, I'm here for the day. Because for those of you on the phone, it will not probably surprise you. I heard from an administrator that kids had learned how to videotape themselves making, just nodding their head or something, and they don't even show up to class. They just play a looped video. And I said, well, there's probably something wrong with instruction if I'm not stopping and pausing to ask my audience if they have questions, or if I'm not checking for understanding several places during my lesson. As a teacher, as an adult, probably check out of meetings every now and then when I'm super not interested, and I might be on my phone or something else. So making sure that we engage our kiddos with the content is something else that we've been talking about, and it came from that astute observation that I guess the teacher finally figured it out or something. And I guess if you're watching close enough, you would notice that the student was on a looped video. So just things to think about that, if we're bored during a meeting, then we know our kids are bored during instruction. So to put ourselves in their shoes sometimes, I know I've seen a lot of secondary teachers, you can't do 45 minutes of direct instruction. It's not going to work in a virtual environment. Again, I can turn off my camera, I could listen to you, or I could even actually mute you if I wanted to, and walk on down the hallway to get some lunch or breakfast or go watch a TV show. So what makes our kids want to show up for class when we're in this environment? And I think we're learning a lot about, I don't think that we were no one was prepared. Some people were prepared. I would say most teachers are not. And we know our new pre-service teachers coming out of college were definitely not prepared for this. And so how do we start as leaders to think about how do we push on higher education to prepare our pre-service teachers for a totally different world, for all the things that Leilani is talking about with AI, which we're starting to dabble in a little bit in our district. She said a little bit about that. We've been exploring it. We're looking at different options. We were doing that right before COVID, and then kind of COVID hit, and it has become less of a priority right now because just our students and survival, I think some days are a priority, and making sure that we're doing the best thing for everybody within the district. But they are things that we're looking at and trying to explore, like how can we make this easier for our teachers? How can we take all this data we have from all these different sources and make it so we can make gains for our students, help them be better in the classroom, improve our test scores, which is not something I like to talk about, but it is kind of the way of education, as we all know. But again, just looking at through those different lenses, what are those tools and resources that are going to help our district move forward? And I think that the pandemic has caused us to realize how important technology can be. It doesn't need to be a barrier. And I do work in the academic side of the house, and we do talk a lot about, it's not about the device, it's about the resources that we get from the device that help drive our instruction, to engage our students, to make things easier for teachers and administrators. And so how do we leverage those tools that, you know, if I was in that tech space, I'd really be thinking about what are the things that schools are going to need once this is over, to push everyone forward. We know that some parents are holding their kids out of school this year and just going to hold them back for a year, which is probably not the best option, but it is happening out there. And so how do we don't want to catch kids up by going way back, but how do we compensate for some of those learning losses, but continue to drive our kids forward with rigorous instruction? Because we don't want to go back to drill and kill when this is over. We want to use some of these great things that we've learned through this process in order to drive that instruction forward. So that's kind of what's happening in Denver Public Schools, although if you call me next week, it'll probably be something new on the horizon, because as we all know, the world is turning. And so we're continuing to try to keep up with those things to make sure that we're providing all those things for our teachers and our administrators and parents. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
Okay, so everybody raise your hand if you have a question so that we can all engage with Lisa, who's been so gracious to join us all the way over from Denver for all the Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama people. You know, it's interesting, Lisa, is that these states, when we were able to go out physically and visit them with events in their area, they were always so enthusiastic and so amazing. It's been really, you know, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, it's an amazing area. I have a question, if you don't mind. What's really been something you've seen in terms of the overall mutation of mindset? Because, you know, quarantines happened, the mad scramble happened, you know, people that were resistant were all having to get on board. Is there a sort of general feeling you can characterize of the difference, you know, before and after?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the people who in the spring thought this too shall pass, we'll just keep trying to band-aid it together, have realized that technology is important, and some of those tools that we're using are actually making life easier, and they're helping to engage with their kids. And I think that's a massive mindset change. And I think as a district, again, we keep saying we can't go back to what normal used to be like. What is our new normal going to be when this is all over? And how are we going to continue to move forward? Like, we don't want to step back to that archaic classroom where I lectured for 45 minutes, gave a quiz, and you walked out of the room. Like, we can't do that anymore. So how do we continue to move that mindset forward?
Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe hopefully eventually arrive at a full mutation into a highly flexible anytime, anywhere difference, you know? That's really the
100%,
challenge. That's really the challenge that we've been seeing, is that mindset shift.
I think, Leilani, though, we've made that mindset shift with our teachers through professional learning being anywhere, anytime. And so I'm hoping that that is kind of like, they're seeing it, like they'll say to us, are you going to create that asynchronously so I can do it anytime? And we're like, yeah, we are. And so I'm hoping that they realize that even their learning is changing, so we need to change our student learning too. I'm hoping that that will be a connection that our teachers make.
Yeah, because setting an example is obviously job one, and I'm proud of you guys for doing all that. Yeah, with limited number of people. What happened also when, you know, the CARES Act money came in? Did you guys get a share of that, and how did the planning go in terms of what was needed?
I think it's a lot of PPE, desks, you know, guards, all these things that we needed, because we've gone to tables, not to desk anymore. So that was a big part of CARES Act for us. We use some for devices. We've been moving towards one-to-one. We just obviously are not there yet. It would have been nice had we been further along in the process, but we're working towards that. But I think a lot of it, Leilani, went for things that will equip our classrooms for that personal in-person learning.
Yeah, that's typical. Yeah, and then in terms of like teacher overwhelm, like you commented on before, what's under the hood with that? Like, is it just the lesson planning readiness, or what are you detecting is the brunt of the overwhelm? You
know, I think part of it is, we just had a meeting with my team yesterday about all the crazy things that are happening in society right now, and all the unknowns and uncertainties that we face in society. And then I think as teachers, that uncertainty about, am I going to teach remote? Am I going to teach in person? Am I going to have 10 kids, 15 kids, 30 kids? What does this look like? And, you know, oh, here's a new guideline about how many kids we can interact with. So I think it's uncertainty, and uncertainty in our personal lives too. I think that is partially doing that. And then again, planning for a different way of teaching. So all those things together are just escalating, I think, our social emotional, you know, bucket. It's full. How do we say no to something, and how do we fill our bucket with something good? We talked about that yesterday. You know, we got to do something for ourselves once in a while.
Yeah, everyone needs a spa day. Everyone in America. We all like, yeah, I don't know. I think I got to have my first haircut, you know, in California, you know, 4 months in, looking pretty ragged, you know. So it's been an interesting moment, no doubt about it. I mean, sometimes you just want to crack jokes about the whole thing because it's just so sad, you know. You got to do something to bring humor in, you know. It's like, wow. Yeah, well, you know, bless all of you, and I wish everyone in Denver so much luck, and thank you so much for sharing all your innovation and what you've been doing to help everyone. It's amazing and awesome, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was fun. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. All right. So bye, Lisa, for now, unless you want to stay on board. You're free to stay with us, but we're going to move on. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Brightspace is a learning management system that makes it easier for you to give each student a more personalized learning experience. And now you can do it with fewer headaches and in less time. It's one platform with a single sign-on to all the tools you need that works on any device and can be used to create a different experience for each grade level. The youngest students can use a portfolio specifically built for non-readers to share what they're learning. As they get older and busier, the activity feed shows them the latest updates to help them keep track of everything that's going on. And no matter what grade your students are in, it's simpler than ever to create lessons and check that content is aligned to standards. You can use materials from publishers, open educational resources, or bring them in directly from Google Drive. The social interface brings it all together in a way that's easy for anyone to use and keeps everyone connected: teachers, students, and their parents. With Brightspace, you'll be able to reach every learner in a way that supports their learning style.